Dr. Natalie Delgado, and I'm the chairperson for the board of the Louisiana Commission for the Deaf. We're going to call this meeting to order at this time at 9:09 a.m. I want to remind everyone of some housekeeping rules. We are not doing our regular process as far as raising hands. It's a little bit of old school this morning, so instead of hitting the button, if you want to give a comment, just physically raise your hand, please. And I'm going to have to scan the board to be able to see everyone who wants to give a comment, so please bear with me. If you wish to be recognized by me, you must raise your hand and then wait to be recognized. Also pause and give a moment for the camera to capture you before you begin speaking. Obviously, we are in a new location, so it's going to take a little adjustment period with the camera system and all of that. So please bear with us as we learn our way through this. We're going to proceed with our silent prayer. Do we have any volunteer to offer a silent prayer? Then we'll just take a moment of silence for everyone here. Okay. And we're going to proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have a volunteer to recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I'm going to call on Mr. Dan Araby. If you can proceed to the front. Mr. Araby can sit or stand right next to the interpreter, Mr. Walker.
Everyone rise. Please stand. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Araby, for taking the lead in the pledge. It's now time for the roll call, and I would like to recognize two new members who are joining us today. We have Senator Klein-Peter And we have Mr. Jamar Ennis is going to be coming very soon. Mr. Ennis is going to be the new director of the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs. And we want to thank Bambi Polozzola and Senator Hewitt for their service for the previous years. And we're very excited to have the new board members with us today. I'm going to call on Dr. Ashley Argrave now for the roll call.
First, Dr. Natalie Delgado. Are you here?
I'm present.
Next, me, Dr. Ashley Argrave. I'm here. Jamar Ennis, not yet arrived, but has informed us that he will be coming. Brad Wellens,
Present.
Cami Gaspar,
Present.
Denise Crochet is not here. She has sent a proxy. Leslie Knowles.
Present.
Dr. Megan Wimberly,
Present.
Senator Kleinpeter, Sherry Crosby,
Present. I'm here.
Meredith Jordan,
Present.
Marissa Ramos,
Here.
Melissa Bayham is not here. Sajada Varner, Dr. David Martin, Sherry Powell,
Present.
and that's it. We have a total of 12 commissioners. We have quorum.
Just waiting for the camera to come back to me. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Argrave. Since we have a quorum, we will proceed with the rest of the meeting. It is time for the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve? If you all have reviewed the agenda already?
Wait for the camera. Okay, I make a motion. This is Sherry Crosby. I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I have a motion from Ms. Crosby. Do I have a second? Dr. Argrave, seconds. Oh, Dr. Knowles, Ms. Knowles. Any opposed? Motion carries. It is time now for the approval of the minute. If you have reviewed the minutes for the last meeting, I'll give you a moment to see if there's any adjustments that need to be made.
Mr. Sherry Crosby, I have a comment.
I'll call on Commissioner Crosby.
If you look under old business, letter C, number 2, there's a motion and then it's in parentheses, it's blank. I'm not sure what's supposed to be in there.
I'll call on Director Broussard.
Good morning. When reviewing the minutes, the secretary did not catch who seconded the motion. And so the record, the transcription was also blank. It said inaudible. So the captionist also did not understand. So we don't know who made the motion and seconded. So unfortunately, we were not able to document that.
This is Commissioner Crosby. Is it okay to leave it blank?
Yes, Commissioner Crosby asked if it's all right to leave it blank. I mean, I suppose we don't have anything, we don't have a record of who made the motion or seconded.
This is Chairperson Commissioner Delgado. Do we have any other changes to be made to the minutes? I'll go ahead and call on Commissioner Crosby. She actually made a motion to approve the minutes. May I have a second? Commissioner Wellen seconds. Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you. At this time, I would like to recognize our new commissioner that was recently appointed, Mr. Jamar Ennis. We're so happy to have you here. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We'll move on to public comments at this time. I want to begin. We have two pretty broad public comments, two general and two that are related to the agenda, specific agenda items. So if you signed up to give a comment on a specific agenda item, I think I will call on your name when it's time to discuss that item. But at this time, as far as general comments, we have a comment from Mr. Dan Araby, and we'll call him to the front of the room at this time. Mr. Araby is welcome to sit or stand next to Mr. Walker, the deaf interpreter.
Hello, can you see me? Okay, good morning. My name is Dan Araby. I just got here from New York City. I've been there for some time, so it's good to see you again. It's really a blessing to be here. So I came here to speak about the topic of co-navigators. But let's put that on hold for 1 second. The concept behind co-navigators started with Louisiana's Department of Health. It's the same services that we've been providing for the deaf and hard of hearing. But it's a new term for these services being used. It's co-navigators. It started in Gallaudet. And some psychologists have supported this term with their research. And this new terminology is a really simple way to elevate the status of that field. And it really inspires people to do their job in a more efficient way. And I'm speaking about SSPs, the support service providers. It's not a good term to use. It's time to adjust that term to a more appropriate label. Co-navigators is more technically correct. It's a better term to use. And other states around America are already using that term. So I would encourage Jana, or, well, let me go back. I would ask the board, please, to reconsider changing that name and that term to co-navigator, and to no longer use the term SSP. It's an outdated concept, and we shouldn't use that anymore. I would like us to adopt this new term. Secondly, Director Broussard has supported a deaf-owned business, a husband and wife-owned business in Arizona. I believe they will explain more about their intentions on saving lives and improving outcomes for the deaf-blind. I recommend that Director Broussard host a workshop and really put a spotlight on that group, and to be friendly with them, right? So that we could be better and have a higher quality of life for us. Thank you for your patience. And Director Broussard, do you have any comments or follow-ups?
This is Dr. Delgado. I'd like to recognize Director Broussard to respond. This is Director Broussard. I'm waiting for Mr. Arabi to be ready to receive my comment. Mr. Arabi, thank you so much for your comment. And it's something that I would like to discuss with you in depth soon, whenever appropriate, okay?
Sure thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is Chairperson Dr. Delgado, patiently waiting to have the camera back on me. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Arabi. Do we have any further comments or concerns from the board relating to what Mr. Arabi shared with us? Yes, Commissioner, I'm going to call on Commissioner Dr. Wimberly. This is Dr. Wimberly speaking. I would like to comment on what Mr. Arabi said regarding the roles of co-navigator versus support service provider. The Deafblind Advisory Board is currently doing research on that proposal from the previous meeting or board meeting, the proposal to change or rename the service. So we are currently doing research, and the community seems to be saying that that co-navigator. So co-navigator is related more to ProTactile. So when it comes to the published, whatever is published out there, the terms don't mean anything different. It's really the same role when it comes to the work the person is doing, but we are trying to find a little bit more depth when it comes to defining the role in human terms. So we are researching more, also self-advocacy workshop for deafblind, and the terminology of support service provider versus co-navigator. But we are going to be advising the board on this, and we're currently doing research. Thank you. This is Chairperson Dr. Delgado. We appreciate that comment. Thank you so much for clarifying that, Dr. Wimberly. Now we have one more public comment of a general nature. It's going to be from Miss Brandy Bordelon. So let's call her to come and sit or stand next to our deaf interpreter at the table. Good morning, members of the board. I've had a few Zoom meetings recently regarding the emergency preparedness, and as well as out-of-state meetings with different people, different organizations. And there's a person, an individual from North Carolina, who has their own, North Carolina has their own division of emergency preparedness for the deaf and hard of hearing. And I thought that was an interesting concept. It would be great to have something here where an organization can create accessible websites just like they do that are especially for our community. In Louisiana, it's something that we don't have. Everything is under one department, which is, to me, was very interesting to learn that there in North Carolina, they have a website that's called the NENA, National Emergency Numbers for individuals with different disabilities in the community, different organizations that work with disabilities to work together and provide guidance, 911 accessibility in a more efficient manner. They have text ready, they have video messages available, they have various centers where people can access information, and it's done locally instead of, you know, something that we should have locally instead of relying on another state. We can have people here, deafblind, deaf people in the community who can call 911 directly. So it's something that we should address. Maybe we could discuss with that organization to find a consultant. Miss Donna Platt is the person that I think would be a great consultant. She is located in North Carolina, and they are divided in 7 regional centers in that state. And each center has an emergency training that's already ready. So as far as the preparedness for hurricane and other disasters, everything is already prepared. I thought it was impressive because we don't have that here. Also, her director, Jane Withers, whom I was not able to meet in person yet, but who Donna mentioned to me that that person was on their commission for the deaf board for many years. And I think perhaps under the last name Wood. But now they have new people. They have a fresher group of people. And so I thought that as an organization or as a board, we should be able to contact them and see how we can improve the system here based on some of the work that they've done. And I've also spoken recently with the Red Cross. And the Red Cross has received some complaints when it comes to delays in receiving accessible fire alarms. There's a contact person that I've tried to engage with to try to find out, because I was supposed to receive mine back in September last year. I have not, and I've tried to contact them several times. And I'm finally received an answer, but it took months, and that's not acceptable. There's no excuse for that. Some people are confused. Some organizations think that the Louisiana Commission for the Deaf provides those fire alarms, the sonic fire alarms. And but no, apparently it's not LCD that's doing that. It's the Red Cross who's responsible for that. it's not part of the list of services that LCD provides. So I've been having to educate different organizations as far as that and finding out that the Red Cross is the one who should provide those alarms. And also on April 9th, I'm taking an April 29th and 30th of this month, I'm going to be taking a training. It's a free emergency preparedness training in Alexandria. That's going to be hosted at the Red Cross Center there. And it's under the, let me check, the Louisiana Development Disability Council, partnering with the Niagara University. 3 deaf individuals will be part of that training. And the training will teach us about disability awareness training, American with Disability Act rights, with emergency management, emergency planning and preparedness, an emergency plan list, and also planning active participation in the training. So the training will be 2 days from 9 to 5 each day. And like I mentioned, in Alexandria. There will be one here in Baton Rouge on May 1st and 2nd. So if any of you are interested in joining that training, it'll be at no cost to you. Also, the Louisiana Emergency Management Conference is coming up on May 6th to 9th. And I have yet to register. I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to come or not. But it's something that you all may also want to consider. I think this concludes my comments.
Thank you very much, Brandy. This is Chairperson Delgado speaking. Now I want to recognize Commissioner Wellens.
Sorry, wrong button. There's like 3 of them. So Brandy, I always appreciate what you bring to our community in terms of awareness of emergency preparedness. And so everything you tell us is a no step that we need to do. One thing I did like was you talked about accessibility of website. And because it's on the spectrum, I know that the deaf have different needs, the deaf blind have different needs. And I know that I, being hard of hearing, has a completely different need from what y'all do. And so I would like the JANA and the administration to take a look at how we can work with either the state or a nonprofit or something like that to make sure that those websites are accessible. That's all I have. Thank you, Brandy.
Chairperson Delgado speaking. I agree. I agree that we do have a lot to do, especially with emergency preparedness here in Louisiana, really all across the state, and especially in different settings. It is a serious situation, unfortunately. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, that we need more training and we need to improve outcomes for our community in Louisiana. Any other comments? Seeing none. Thank you for that. We will move on to old business. First, we have our proposed rules for LCD administrative code for interpreters, for American Sign Language interpreters working in education settings, an update on the progress. We have 2 public comments on that topic. 3 public comments, I apologize. I recognize Director Broussard, please. I'll go ahead and give the update first. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So you probably remember that we've discussed this topic for a while now. In our last meeting, the discussion was on specifics relating to the standards for interpreters in the educational setting. Since that meeting, we have proposed a draft of rules to the Department of Health, their legal team. In our last meeting, we were waiting for a response. We did get that response. There were some changes, adjustments. We discussed in the last meeting that we would set up an advisory council for the interpreters. However, we cannot add that in the rules, not yet. The legal team did provide us information on how to set up a temporary until we get that formal body. We had to remove that from the draft for now. So more information to come regarding that on creating that advisory committee. We just weren't able to add it in the draft just yet. Second, I know there was a lot of discussion regarding the transition, the policy, the transition requirements for the current interpreters. So currently what it would look like, I don't have it in front of me, but I'm trying to remember. The new standards will start July 2025, meaning that we will write everything up, but it will not affect anything until July 2025 for the new people coming, meaning new employees, new interpreters who will become an employee in the educational setting. And they will be required to meet the standards starting July 2025. So currently, that means the people who are currently working in K through 12, the standard requirement, they will have to meet those standards in July of 2026. So that's 2 years from today. Legal team has approved that. And again, we have heard lots of comments, concerns, scenarios regarding the educational interpreters. Some of those interpreters who may be close to retirement, some who are close to meeting the requirements but have not yet meet those requirements, and what will happen to those interpreters. Again, we just want to remind you that in the draft, it's for each individual. Some of those will be waived. They have to request a waiver for these special circumstances. And we encourage people to consider each situation. So when 2026 happens and you still haven't met those requirements, you can show that you've done your work, what work you've done to get to those requirements. The board will consider and give a temporary, I would assume the board would consider giving a temporary extension or something in that nature. So the next step is we are still waiting for the occupational licensing committee to set up the next meeting. Our standards currently will be included in Title 46, and that's where the other occupational standards are listed. The ASL interpreters will be in that list, just like a nurse, a doctor, beautician. That means that the occupational licensed therapist will have to review our codes first before they approve We haven't had a meeting since December. I knew that we just had a new governor. The administration has changed, so we're waiting for those to be completed before we establish a meeting. We are expected to hear from them soon about their next meeting. When that happens, we will submit the draft to that commission. And that will be a public meeting. People are allowed to make a comment to them about this. And they'll have to approve everything. After that, they will go to the Department of Health for us to make approvals. That also will provide a 30-day public comment timeline again. And that's where people can file with the Department of Health for review. So that transition that we've been talking about, the legal team did approve it as written. So currently at this time, the board has no motion to change anything at this time, and we will continue to move forward. And I will take any questions at this time if there are any.
Chairperson Delgado speaking. Okay, we will move forward with our public comments related to this agenda item. We'll start with one comment from that we got from an email. We're just making sure the interpreters are ready before I begin. Just one moment, please. Oh, first, we do have a question or comment from Commissioner Wellens.
Can y'all hear me? Good. Jana, is there a way, or Chairman Delgado, is there a way that the email, instead of being read here, can be included in the minutes so whoever would like to look like in a public way, so that in the interest of time? I mean, if it's important, I understand.
Commissioner Delgado speaking. Okay, I will read this. This will be read aloud. Is that sufficient? Okay. Again, Dr. Natalie Delgado speaking, and I'm reading this public comment. I want to start off by reading this comment from Natosha Istra, an interpreter. I want to start by asking you to please understand that I am first and foremost a proponent for raising the bar and creating much needed change for educational interpreters in the state of Louisiana. However, I am also a realist and have firsthand knowledge of the current state of educational interpreting in Louisiana. It is a very bleak and hopeless place. Louisiana currently has one interpreter training program in the entire state, located in New Orleans. The only other way we get new interpreters is if they voluntarily move here or if they are incentivized to come. And let's face it, there are currently no incentives. Traditionally, ASL interpreters have been trained within and by the local deaf community. I and many of my colleagues were trained in this way. Since there were no interpreter training programs and still are not any in the state. Fortunately, I am one of the lucky ones because Louisiana not only lacks in interpreters, but also, as mentioned, interpreter training, ASL classes as a foreign language in public schools, and even getting specific professional development is becoming increasingly more difficult and expensive. After starting my educational interpreter journey, I made sure to take advantage of every opportunity to advance my specialization that has been offered to me over the last 20 years. I was a recipient of a scholarship offered through the LDOE for an educational interpreter certification program, which is now no longer offered. Also, I received scholarships to obtain my associated degree and eventually my bachelor's degree in social sciences because I could not get a degree in interpreting. No matter how much I wanted, I could not afford to move across the state or afford to do an online program. I have worked tirelessly to not only maintain, but go above and beyond the current standards set by the LDOE. I have taken classes, certified, recertified, tested, and retested to prove my worth and excel in my field. However, I still do not meet the minimum test scores, an EIPA 4.0, which is being proposed. The minimum score required for the new standards is extraordinarily difficult to obtain. Research shows that only 23% of individuals that take the EIPA score a 4.0 or higher. That means that 77% of test takers will be excluded from being employed in our state. My suggestion is to expand the minimum to include interpreters that score a 3.5 or higher. That same research says that an additional 34% score a 3.5 to 3.9. That would bring the pool of interpreters up to 55% of test takers. There is a graphic here. I will sign briefly to explain what the graphic shows. There is EIPA score, different EIPA scores. There are different years listed in columns. We have 2002 to 2008, 2009 to 2014. And then in the last column, we have the percentage change. So going row by row, we now have EIPA less than a 3.0, which from 2002 to 2008 was 36%. From 2009 to 2014 was 16%. And that percent change is a negative 20%. The next row is the EIPA less than 3.5, which from 2002 to 2008 was a 66%. 2009 to 2014 was a 60%. And that percent change is a negative 6%. The next row is for greater than the EIPA score of 3.5, which from 2002 to 2008 was 34%, 2009 to 2014 was 40%, and that percent change is a positive 6%. The next row is EIPA score above a 4.0, which from 2002 to 2008 was 13%, 2009 to 2014 was 23%, and that percent change is a positive 10%. For 2002 to 2008, the sample size of participants was 9,330 individuals. For 2009 to 2014, the sample size of test takers was 8,680 individuals, and that percent change is 18,157. Moving on to the rest of the comment. I see several issues with the proposed standards. First, because there is no high school to college to career pipeline for ASL interpreters locally, there is no one waiting in the wings to take our place. There are no training programs to fill the gaps, and there are simply no resources to maintain the current need of educational interpreters, let alone the drastic change in standards. We need to build the pipeline immediately. Second, only allowing 2 years, July 1st, 2026, for current LDOE qualified interpreters to meet the new standards is going to result in an immediate exodus from an already taxed system. The timeline should be expanded to a more feasible level, especially considering the number of interpreters who are ready to retire. There is no incentive for them to continue their education or even increase their EIPA scores. Additionally, as stated, many of the interpreters in our area are close to retirement age, so we will soon lose many of the interpreters we have had for years, either to retirement or being forced out by the new standards. Finally, as the new standards stand, we must have some concessions made for those interpreters already working under LDOE as qualified interpreters and that have maintained the professional development hours that have been required over the years. We could follow in the footsteps of Mississippi and include a provision in the new standards. Their law has made allowances for the deaf and interpreters within their state. It says proof deaf client will be left without interpreting services or proof of undue hardship on the school or agency due to loss of interpreting services. Alabama also has a similar statement within their law, saying there is an old provision in the law that interpreters hired to work in educational settings prior to March 15th, 2000 could apply by October of the year 2000 for an educational interpreter permit that was restricted to educational settings only. If interpreters have kept this current, they may still hold this type of permit. As illustrated just a few weeks ago, we know that for a bridge to not collapse, a strong foundation needs to be created. The new standards being proposed for ASL interpreters are a beautiful and robust bridge that is being created. However, the board needs to look around at the current state of Louisiana and recognize that there is no foundation to support this bridge. We all know that there is already an interpreter shortage within the state, especially in the rural areas, and you can ask any interpreting hiring entity about that. The school board I work for currently has open positions and no substitutes, which is a common occurrence across the state. I had to decide today to either go to work for my students or come and stand before you. Please know most of the time, my students will come first. Change is necessary, but this is an extremely delicate situation that, if not handled with caution, will result in an even more dire need for educational interpreters because there won't be enough left in the state of Louisiana to sustain the needs of the deaf community. Thank you for your time and your consideration. Commissioner Delgado speaking. Oh, sorry, one moment. We'll move forward with our other public comment who is here in the audience today, Laney Trahan. Trahan.
Hello? Hello? Can y'all hear me? Hello? Can y'all hear me? I don't know, the light is, okay, now you can hear me? Hello, my name is Lainey Trohol. I'm the lead interpreter in Lafayette Parish, where we proudly house the largest deaf education program in the state and accommodate 5 surrounding parishes. As lead, I'm responsible for supervising certified interpreters and providing guidance to aspiring interpreters. After carefully examining the proposed standards, I have several reservations. Currently, interpreters are required to have an EIPA performance evaluation of 3.0 and pass a written test. While we acknowledge that the current standards are inadequate and aiming for a 4.0 is commendable, we firmly believe that these new standards fall short of a reasonable minimum and will cause further harm to deaf students. The EIPA, while often discredited, is an exceptional test that demands extensive preparation, dedicated study, practical hands-on experience, and realistic ethical scenarios. Based on the timeline proposed, it would be impossible to raise the current interpreter's EIPA score to a 4.0 or higher and also work towards earning a degree. As someone who has taken the test and was raised signing, I know firsthand the difficulty of achieving a high score. It took me over 4 years to finally reach a score over 4.0. However, this is not a typical time frame for most interpreters. Having been exposed to deaf culture from a young age aided in my experience. If these standards were enforced, I, along with all Lafayette Parish interpreters, would not meet the proposed standards. Our current requirements do not necessitate higher education, and while it is always valuable, interpreting requires a skill that a diploma cannot replace. As lead interpreter, my priority is to hire someone with exceptional interpreting skills over someone with a college degree. Equally, the mandate for a degree and the alternative pathway seems self-serving, as a few ad hoc committee members or professors at the only community college that offers an interpreter program in the state. Although the proposed degree standards did not specify a field of study, any other field would not improve interpreting skills. Enforcing these new standards could also have legal implications for districts that fail to fulfill students' IEP accommodations and further cause language deprivation for our students. This will also force interpreters to prioritize new standards of professional development over meeting the educational needs of our students. I also have reservations about the certification process. It's worded in the final submission, may be eligible for approval on case-by-case basis. This phrasing seems somewhat ambiguous. I worry that my renewal, along with many other interpreters, could ultimately hinge on such a decision, leaving our job security in constant turmoil. RID offers a one-time work equivalency for college hours upon initial certification. Renewals then consist of CEUs and fees only. But unlike RID, it appears that the proposed standards would require 60 college hours every renewal. These qualifications will have a significant impact not only on our students, but also on the shortage of interpreters. Over the years, we've been unable to fill 10 interpreter positions in our parish, and we have not received a single application in the past year. Further, we face the reality that many of our current interpreters are approaching retirement age. Lafayette Parish has acknowledged this and taken proactive measures to address it. The parish has contracts with 2 agencies that provide substitute interpreters to comply with students' IEPs. However, the shortage of interpreters also affects these community-based interpreters. On many occasions, the agencies have been unable to provide sufficient substitute interpreters. These standards will create a ripple effect where community interpreters will not meet the educational qualifications, therefore continuing to limit the availability of interpreters. While community-based interpreting is not my area of expertise, these standards will impact all interpreters. Educational interpreters seeking to immerse themselves in the deaf community and gain experience in a variety of job settings would lose these opportunities. Introducing different sets of qualifications for different groups of interpreters will ultimately limit the pool of professionals even further. Most of my experience working with deaf adults comes from community-based interpreting, which improved my receptivity and exposed me to localized signs that children often do not have. Furthermore, these standards will come with significant financial obligations that can prove difficult for those who are already underpaid. Currently, the incentives in place within our district do not justify the cost of certification and failing to provide interpreters with the necessary motivation to improve their EIPA scores. As for myself, pursuing an associate's or bachelor's degree would not yield a substantial salary increase, but instead add an extra financial burden that I cannot bear. Also, my district acknowledges solely a bachelor's degree and a 4.0. Hence, obtaining an associate's degree as mentioned in the standards would not result in a salary increase. Additionally, given my current situation and like many others, committing to a part-time or full-time student schedule is not feasible. After carefully considering the pros and cons of also applying for the ORID certification and renewal every 4 years, the drawbacks outweighed the benefits, particularly when our district does not recognize it as a pay incentive. It is obvious that we all agree that the current standards fall short. Therefore, I propose that we reassess these standards to accommodate the qualified current interpreters we employ. And rather than solely concentrating on raising the standards, let us collaborate to provide expanded avenues for professional growth. It's worth noting that in the state of Louisiana, we have limited access for professional development and often rely on outside resources or online workshops. There are not always a complete substitute for hands-on experience, can be quite costly, and also denied by our districts. As educational interpreters, we feel excluded from the decision-making process and respectfully request reconsideration of this matter for the sake of us and our students. Thank you so much.
It's the chairperson, Natalie Delgado again. We do have one more public comment from Krista Forks. Folks, from Miss Krista Folks. If you just can come on. This is Director Broussard mentioning that the Lafayette pronunciations are foreign to the Baton Rouge people and even worse for some foreign interpreters.
Hello, can you hear me? Is that good? Good. Okay. My name is Krista Folks. I am from Calcasieu Parish. And I coordinate services for the Direct and Related Services Department. So I oversee the Vision Department, the Deaf Hard of Hearing Department, Occupational Therapy, Physical Therapy departments, and I feel like I'm missing one, OT, PT, APE, Adaptive Physical Education, Vision, Deaf Hard of Hearing. There we go. So one of my jobs is to make sure that we are hiring qualified personnel specifically for interpreting. I make sure that whoever I'm interviewing and I'm about to hire can pass the pre-hire screening or has an EIPA score that meets Louisiana standards. With the new standards, I am concerned just a bit. I love our students. I love all of our students. The deaf population, deaf community, our deaf students have a special place in my heart. They always have. I want what's best for them. I want what's best for our interpreters too, and our staff. I want to make that known. But priority is for I want what's best for our deaf students at this time, and I want them to have the best language role models. So I want to preface by saying I know that there needs to be change. A 3.0 is far too low of an EIPA score than what our students deserve. They all deserve a much higher score than that, and Louisiana does need to raise the bar. My major concern is the timeline of having a year and a half, basically, for our current interpreters to meet these to meet these standards, to earn that 4.0 EIPA score, and also to get an associate's degree or bachelor's degree in a year and a half. Now, in our district, with the new proposed standards, we would only have one interpreter available to interpret to more than 12 children. So while, yes, the proposed standards are helping the students, yes, we're going to bring in better qualified, more qualified people according to standards. We're going to be hurting our students at the same time because we don't have the personnel available with these requirements. The 4.0, we have interpreters that have score of EIPA of 4.4. We have interpreters with 4.0s, but not all of them have degrees. But does that mean that they're less of an interpreter? Their skill set is phenomenal. Like they can interpret. You send them to physics, chemistry, English, they can do it, but they don't have a degree. So 2026, they don't meet the requirements. They're out. And this is what they've been doing for years. On the other hand, we have interpreters that, let's just say they have a 3.7 or 3.8. They have a degree, but guess what? They're going to be out too in 2026. And while I know that there is a process, a grievance process, there's the process to, hey, let's see if we'll look at that on an individual basis. But we're assuming that, oh, they're going to be okay. There's no guarantees for that. There's no guarantee that a person with a 3.9 is going to be accepted with 27 years of interpreting experience. So at that point, I know that some of our interpreters are going to say, I'm out. I'm done. I don't need to be here anymore. So I do believe that Miss Lainey Trahan and then Miss Natasha East email, ISTRE, East email, they have said pretty much it all. I do believe that change needs to occur, but we do need these guidelines to be revised and reconsidered. Thank you all.
This is Chairperson Delgado. Thank you all so much for your public comment, because this is a very crucial discussion. There's a lot to consider here about how we're going to go about to accomplish this massive endeavor. I want to check if we have any comment from the board. Does anyone would like to add? Does anyone have anything to add? Okay, so first I will recognize Commissioner Dr. Wimberly. This is Commissioner Wimberly speaking. This is a lot of very valuable information. I am myself, I'm a product of the mainstream program, and I've worked with some fabulous interpreters, excellent interpreters throughout the years, and they were great language models. Some of them are fantastic also for our students. And we do want to raise the standard. So as they mentioned, there are gaps in resources though in the state of Louisiana, and that's true. There's only one interpreter training program. It's at Delgado Community College in New Orleans, and I haven't heard of any other. But the question is, at this point, can the Louisiana Department of Education partner with the EIPA to provide some sort of a list of resources that we can give and provide to the state of Louisiana? Because apparently we are creating expectations that are too high for people to meet without providing the proper support for them to meet those expectations. So where are the resources and where's the training? Like Lainey mentioned, the professional development, the professional growth, the help for improvement is not there. So those are items to consider. So we can consider some tiered support. At the previous board meeting, we had discussed a grandfathering clause. And if there's if there's any more update to that, it would be great to know what kind of support can be provided to the different tiers of interpreter in the field. And if there are any specific levels that need to be met, then what kind of steps we can provide? Maybe we can provide stipends to help raise the bar and meet the expectations. So we are considering raising the standard, but we need to give the adequate support. If we want to grandfather some interpreters in the system, then those in the fields who have, perhaps extra time and then maybe we have some new interpreters who want to join the field. Those also should be held to the new expectations to come in, of course. But those who have many years of experience, what can they do? So I'd like to have an update on that if we consider it stipend and a tiered system and a tiered support. That's my comment. Thank you. This is Chairperson Delgado speaking. I would also like to call on Commissioner Gaspar for her comments.
I'm waiting for the camera. Okay. Hello. Hello. I'm here because I'm a parent of a deaf child, and I'm also a deaf adult. And I've been to 6 different mainstream programs and graduated from LSD finally. But about my child, when my child comes home, the lack of language, the lack of education, and wow, when I go to the school and I try to engage the principals, the principal and the teachers, the interpreter comes in and I'm like, I think it's going to be fine, but communication is just not happening. And it's an issue with that interpreter. So that interpreter is causing language deprivation to my child in the school. And it's just not enough at that, that perspective, the mentoring, it's not enough. And people who with knowledge about what, when they think about, okay, this department and this part of the high school and special needs department and this department and that department, all the variety of departments. I mean, like it should be a specialist specifically one-on-one and engage its assessing language skills of, of the interpreters working with different students before they get into the high school, from elementary through kindergarten through high school. When we had the elementary school interpreter that was called for an emergency to a high school to interpret for that student, they didn't get it. They didn't, elementary is a limited set of vocabulary, and then they send them over to the high school and it's like, wow, high school level classes and they, honors classes and all that, and English 4. And it was just too much for my child. Because yes, it was the interpreter. The interpreter was there, but the interpreter was not qualified, not certified, not the appropriate interpreter for those different classes. It was not an appropriate. There's no monitor that should not be monitored by the Department of Education. LCD really needs to take this over, and we need to continue this, setting up the new standards. We need to provide better for our deaf children, the deaf, blind, and hard of hearing children. They deserve equal education. They're not getting it. They're not getting it with the people that we have that are satisfying the 3.0 EIPA or even a 3.5. I'm very upset. It makes me very nervous, and I'm shaking up here because my child should be able to function out in the world and have an equal education as a hearing student. But they don't, and it's not acceptable. Because the interpreter has a 3.0 EIPA. That should be enough. And they, you know, they don't have enough sign language skills. It's not acceptable. Thank you.
This is Chairperson Dr. Delgado speaking again. And now I want to recognize Commissioner Klein Peter for his comments, please.
All right, here we go. All right. Sorry I didn't make the last meeting. I'm in the process of texting Jana right now, trying to understand the scale. She's saying it's a 0 to 5.0 as far as the scale for the rating. So we're wanting to go up to 4.0. And I think most people here, from what I've heard, is in agreement with that. But I think I might end up having a problem with making it mandatory that you have to get the degree, like Ms. Trahan mentioned earlier. I think we're going to tie our hands as far as possible. The people that the opportunity for, I think we're just going to reduce the amount of people that could fill these shoes and interpret. So what happened in that last meeting? I guess this was voted on by, you said, go ahead. The board. Okay. And we discussed on a grandfather clause, but did not take a vote on it. Yes, you can answer that.
This is Chairperson Delgado calling on Director Broussard. And by the way, the interpreter would like to make a correction. It was not a comment by Commissioner Klein Peter with Senator Klein Peter. Commissioner Broussard speaking, Director Broussard speaking. I just want to give an update on what we're discussing. So the vote was done back in October, I believe. Anyone correct me if I'm wrong? At the ad hoc committee, which has been working on for a long time on writing a recommendation for the entire board, and then the board voted to approve the recommendation. Since then, as we are working and progressing toward that goal, to meet the process, the state requirement, the board has had a continued discussion on this topic, and we've received a lot of public comments as well. So the grandfathering clause that has been mentioned so far seems, it looks as though it's not going to be a complete waiver. The majority of the board does not want a complete waiver to grandfather interpreters. But a few people have mentioned, like Dr. Martin, and I believe you made the recommendation, Dr. Martin, at the last meeting, to have various solutions for perhaps a temporary or emergency type of certification. So there were different ideas that have been discussed, but the board at this time has not made a final vote on anything different than what has been accepted back in October or what was written in October. So the discussion is ongoing, but there is no vote on these specifications at this time. And if I'm inaccurate, please let me know. And this is Chairperson Dr. Delgado. I would like to call on Senator Klein Peter again.
No, I would like to go on the record and state that so you can score, I guess you test out is what I'm assuming. And let's just say, what if somebody tests at 4.5 or 4.1, we're going to mandate that they have to go to get a college degree. And that just blows my mind that not everybody has to go to college. If you're a good interpreter and you can interpret, why are we forcing somebody to go get a college education? I don't agree with that.
This is Chairperson Dr. Delgado speaking. Now I will recognize Commissioner Dr. Martin.
Thank you, Chairperson Delgado. I think when during the last meeting, I come at it from a school administrator perspective. I'm in my 14th year now as a school administrator, and I run the Louisiana Special School District. I think when we're talking about this, we're really talking about educational interpreters, right? That's what we're talking about. And these folks are going to be interpreting content from like a math teacher or a English teacher or a science teacher to the students so that they can get the information. In schools, we have a teacher shortage right now. And we have and that's across the board. And if you look at special education, it's even higher. I talked about having like a temporary certificate, I believe last time we were here, much like a teacher can get a temporary certificate while they work through the other qualifications. And so I heard discussion about by 2026, this has to be in place. But if there is a temporary certification that they can get in place by 2026, meeting certain qualifications, like if a teacher needs to get a temporary certification, they typically have to take the praxis exam to show that they have content knowledge in that area. So much like the tests that we've been talking about, if they can score a certain proficiency on that content area test, then they could get a 5-year, non-renewable certificate, which would give them an additional 5 years to make sure that they meet those other qualifications. I think it's important when you're interpreting complex information in a classroom that you're able to grasp that a little bit. So there may be I don't know if the college degree is the answer to that, whether it's a 2-year or 4-year college degree, but there needs to be some guardrails. Maybe there's a praxis exam that they could take in order to show that. I don't know what that is, but I think that also the onus goes on these on districts. As someone that runs a school district or state agency school district, the onus goes on me to make sure that I have those resources available. I heard the discussion about the financial burden that it takes to get that 2-year or 4-year degree. Well, I think it's on the onus of the districts to build partnerships with universities and institutions of higher ed that would help facilitate that, whether they pay the tuition or not. They need those folks in the classroom. They're required by law to have those folks in the classroom. So we need to, I guess, pony up and make sure that we provide the resources to have those folks in the classroom. I believe in high standards. I don't believe in making it impossible, but I believe in high standards because as Commissioner Gaspar noted in her conversation, every student deserves a high quality educator. Every student deserves a high quality interpreter in front of them, and anything that we can do to facilitate that. But I really believe we have to put in mechanisms that allow it to happen and make it feasible, such as those temporary certifications that would give folks a much longer runway than we're talking about 2026. But that's my opinion.
Chairperson Delgado, waiting for the camera. Great. I'm going to now, this is Dr. Delgado. I'm going to recognize Commissioner Ramos.
Okay, I'm a speech language pathologist and I've seen a lot of these kids in the schools. And I've worked with kids who have, different levels of interpreters within the schools. I just want to make a comment saying that in just doing a little Google search, and I've seen this before, and I'm sure a lot of y'all have seen this before, that A 3.5 on the EIPA means that 60% of the information in the class is being relayed to that child. And so when we're talking about deaf children who already may have other disabilities, a deaf child who may have something called language deprivation syndrome, 60% is the reason why, or part of the reason why they have that language deprivation is because they're being deprived of the rest of that information in their classroom. So to me, this is a really big deal. At the same time, being in these schools, I completely am aware of how difficult it is to get qualified people and maintain those qualified people. For me personally, I think that we have to make kind of strong but reasonable decisions as a board so that we can progress our state to meet standards that other states are already meeting and that our kids are getting quality education similar to other states that have much higher standards for deaf kids. And my hope is that in doing so, that in the long term, interpreting will be more respected as a profession, that you will be required, like I'm a speech therapist, required to get a certification, that those certifications and certain testing measures are required in our state to a higher standard. So I just also want to recognize how little educational interpreters get paid and how much that is really damaging to our deaf students as well. So I know that there's a whole lot to consider, but that number of a 3.5 being 60% of what's going on in the classroom, to me, that is not acceptable for, if that were my child, getting only 60% of what's going on in the classroom. It's just not an acceptable measure.
Chairperson Delgado speaking. I think we have one more comment. Yes. From Commissioner Knowles. Hello, my name is Leslie Knowles. I'm wearing a different hat today. I am currently the LRID president. Actually, I have multiple hats. I'm the director of the ASL interpreting program at Delgado Community College in New Orleans. And I am also a community interpreter. I also used to be an educational interpreter. Plus, I was on the ad hoc committee for these standards. So I'm trying to figure out which hat I should put on right now. I do agree that educational interpreter pay in this state is abysmal. It's absolutely deplorable and sad. However, the deaf children in this state deserve the best service we can provide. And going back to the email comment about the EIPA results, I think that information is antiquated, from the 2000s, 2008. We need more current data, more current research. Now thinking about this in the perspective of the ad hoc committee, we don't want to exclude interpreters. We need community interpreters. But we need to raise the expectations and the standards for those interpreters. We, as in the board and everyone here, the commission and the community, we first need to know how many deaf children are out there. How many deaf students are using interpreting services? We really have no clue. Plus, we need to know how many interpreters there are. We want to provide training opportunities. And where you need those opportunities, let us know. My report is coming later. We do have some funding now, and we want to provide free trainings to the state of Louisiana and the interpreters here, and to the community as well. So we want to provide those trainings. We want to provide support. And as someone else has said, we want to partner. Okay, so let me switch hats again to the Delgado Community College hat. We're the only one. BRCC has a program, but they are just starting to build it. We only have the one in New Orleans, and it's quite a distance from Baton Rouge. And we need support all over the state. We would like to partner with Louisiana Department of Education. That would be fantastic. We would like to partner with local schools, local school districts as well. The special school district. Yes, please, let's partner. Like, we're ready for it. Come on. But the goal should be to raise standards all across the state so that our students can get the best educational services that we can provide. Thank you. Chairperson Delgado speaking. I believe that Commissioner Jordan has a comment as well. I'll call on her.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairperson Delgado. First of all, I want to thank our educational interpreters, community interpreters across our state who provide this access for our students, for individuals across our state. Thank you to those educational interpreters who were in the room, those who submitted comments and who do this on a daily basis for our children. We do need them. I hear more often than I want to that we don't have enough. And so I think that is the very conversations that is on the table here is what within our standards may further that complication. And what I hear them saying is that they don't disagree that standards need to be higher. We want, and we've always, from a department perspective, said we want the best interpreters and individuals in front of these students providing this access. And so I wanted to start by thanking those who do that day in and day out for these students. And we do know there's a huge shortage in this. And so anything that we can do to prevent that is what we should be doing. Second, I've heard several comments about partnerships with LDOE funding. I'm a tiny step ahead, not far. But we had this conversation at our state special education advisory panel. One of the things that I am interested in doing, that the department is interested in doing, is finding out from those who are doing this, from leaders like Krista, what is it that our districts need? Is it that very old scholarship program that we used to have to help recruit educational interpreters? Is it a perhaps one-time incentive funding that I could use our state IDA funds to help our school systems recruit individuals? There are ways. It is in my budget. I'm committing here before you all that we will do something as soon as I work with the folks like all of you sitting at this table to know what is it, what is the best way to recruit these individuals, whether it's a scholarship program for training, to get additional certified interpreters. Is it incentive funding to get more of those individuals coming into our school systems? I know our school systems also compete with, they're also using contracted interpreters for many different ways. There are districts in our state who have designed model funding and model pay scales that we've been sharing for what educational interpreters should make and how they should be funded and paid appropriately for the work, the important work that it is that they do. And we are at the department very much proponents of what we call differentiated compensation for the areas of need, the areas of shortages in school systems. We have to be willing to differentiate that compensation to get those individuals that are highly needed that we cannot find and attract them into our school systems. And so I want to tell you all, I'm here. We'll be talking about some additional funding partnerships later. But this is something that my seat panel was very much interested in and on board with, us funneling some of our state level IDEA funding to give districts additional funding to help. It's going to be pretty broad, related service providers, OTPT, but some of these other specialized educational interpreters, TBIs, teachers of the deaf, some of those very specialized certifications and experienced and qualified individuals to provide additional funding to help recruit, because we know this is a shortage area. We know it's a need. We hear it. And so that's definitely something that we are willing to do and that I'm working on. And I'm going to have some very specific conversations on the what. What is it that will best help our school systems recruit and retain more of these individuals? Oh, one more thing, if I may. If you will remember, this was many years ago when I was also at Special School District, we also created a Jumpstart pathway to where our idea was that because we had the approval of American Sign Language as a foreign language in schools, the idea was that we as school systems would begin to use that coursework and start to actually create our own interpreters from our kids who are interested in ASL and taking ASL. And so I am trying to reignite that fire. It is there. ASL interpreters are an approved Jumpstart pathway for kids who are taking those courses. They can, I believe, don't quote me, I might be wrong, but I believe they can take that EIPA paid for by the school. So like they're taking that assessment as well, getting training. And so the idea is for our school systems to start also using their own children, their kids in their schools, and create amazing educational interpreters in our state. But I also hear that we also need additional training. That is a challenge for us as a state, is having one training, additional training that those kids may need to go to as well. So just bear with me. Everything you guys are saying, I'm taking in and figuring out what next steps the department can take to help this as well.
Chairperson Delgado speaking. Now recognizing Senator Klein Peter.
Thank you. I just, I wanted to clear up. I thought that what we were making was mandatory, like a bachelor's degree. And thank you, doctor, for, explaining the certificates as well. I think that we have a teacher here that might be on that verge of getting an associate's. And that's what I wanted to state, that if there's no incentive for her to go back to school, I mean, this is a special calling. To be an interpreter, it's a special calling, and I don't want to limit someone that's right there on that edge of becoming, or that's already an interpreter, but we're going to force them out because there's no incentive. So to hear Ms. Jordan speak on the incentives, that's something that we need to look at as far as the state. And then I think Ms. Knowles had mentioned as far as how many interpreters do we have, and how many students need interpreters, and have almost a ratio. I'm not sure if we have that now. Like I said, I'm new to all this, trying to learn as fast as I can. And, but a lot of good information here today. And I think that our students should have the best. And I think that we should invest in them as far as in the interpreters. I just don't want to tie certain people's hands as far as if they're, I like the certificate thing that you brought up, doctor. So that's all I have.
Chairperson Delgado speaking. Now recognizing Director Broussard.
I wanted to just mention something about what Meredith mentioned about that Jumpstart pathway. I want to congratulate that we recognize that that was set up previously. It's not doing anything right now, but sorry, it's not working right now as written previously because the new standards means that those students from high school, they've only taken perhaps 2 years. Will they get a 4.0? No. So previously, I think the concept, what didn't work because of even with the 3.0, that was the requirement. And really the concept was great, but we don't want to feed more people in that are not skilled, right? Our goal is to increase the standards and qualifications. So that's why we haven't really pushed the Jumpstart pathway. Because we recognize that, no, we need to put that on hold. We don't want those high school kids coming in and signing and not doing well. That would not be successful. So we need to create a program that works with the district so that we can do, like, have a pipeline, as Leslie mentioned, that we can, that we can start teaching them in high school, yes. And then they can go to college, and then they can go to mentorship, and then they can go work in the schools. And I understand, I know, like, currently right now the situation is emergent, and but that's our ultimate goal, to have both short-term and long-term goals. We need both of those. So that's our ultimate goal that we are still working on. So thank you for mentioning about that. And I really like, also related to the degrees. Currently, the associate's degree, an associate's, not a bachelor's, just to make sure that we're clear on that, because I've heard both mentioned, and I want to make sure that the associate's is the requirement. And also alternate pathways. That way interpreters can have 45, is it 45? It's 45 hours of experience credit that applies to that 60 hours. So we've been working on that, and we have I think it's 45 hours. But they still require 15 credit hours. I do want the board to know the ad hoc committee, some feel very strongly about this and some do not. Now, they did vote on it and it did pass. And, I look back and we have it all recorded. So I look back at that, and I've heard from a lot of the board members about this as well. And it's a huge variety of perspectives. And so I ask the board to really think about what it is that you want. So, we need to think about what we really want related to the recommendations. And I want to make sure that we are clear. And so I'm just asking the board to please, thank you for this discussion. It is crucial. It's a critical issue. I mean, I spent 15 years as an educational interpreter. That's really where my heart is. So whatever we can do to really prioritize the children and also consider, the children with the interpreters. So how do we take care of both of them at the same time? It's a really important discussion. I mean, all over the country, people are looking at Louisiana. What is Louisiana going to do? It's a really big decision. So I want to thank you.
Chairperson Delgado speaking. Recognizing Commissioner Ramos. Go ahead.
I just want to say that I started learning when I was in high school. I was 15 years old, and that was half of my life ago. But I just wanted to come and say that for me, every day since I was 15, I've been completely in love with ASL, and that's why I'm here right now. I'm going to get a little emotional about it. So I really do believe in the power of starting with high school students, because that was the time that I was the most inspired. Honestly, and Jana, I know that you said that we might not be able to pass at a 4.0 coming out of high school. I might have been able to pass at a 4.0 coming out of high school. So just saying that sometimes there are, I don't think that I would necessarily be ready for the responsibility and commitment of being an educational interpreter coming out of high school. But I think that having some college background, starting as early as we can, people always compliment me on my ASL skill because, and they're like, how do you sign so well? It's because I started at 15 before my brain was fully developed. And so I was able to learn that language and really internalize it in a completely different way than someone starting at 22, someone starting at 25, someone starting at age 30. So I think that we also just have to be realistic about the science behind language learning as well, that it's going to happen the best with people who are of younger age, and kind of invest in our long-term goals as a society. So the more that, in the same way that we invest in early intervention with kids who have disabilities, like language learning, the earlier that it happens, the better. So I would love to be a part of that process of getting ASL into more schools and high schools. So.
Chairperson Delgado speaking. I know we've had a lot of discussion, concerns, and thoughts and ideas about this topic. So now I really want to see, do we have any motions or, oh, I'm sorry, I missed some hands, I see. So, okay, I'll go ahead and call on board members who want to comment, but just some food for thought. Think about the idea of any potential action we could take. If we could make a motion to revise or a motion to just edit something, please just think about that. Take a moment to think about motions we could make. And please raise your hands again to see who is waiting to make a comment. I see we have one, another two. I'm sorry, Dr. Wimberly. It's tough to see you with Jana in between the two of us. So, okay, I'll Dr. Wimberly first and then Sherry.
Time to figure out the best way.
Dr. Wimberly speaking. Yes, we do need higher standards. It's very important. And interpreters need good examples. So I propose for the ad hoc committee perhaps to consider how to support our interpreters to be successful and achieve those standards. What's the plan? Could you explain maybe a backup plan, something like Dr. Martin proposed an emergency certification, something that we could add to the written language to support this to be successful? Because yes, I do support higher standards 100%, but we need some sort of way to get there. College degrees or support, what's the plan? I'd like to see that documented. What sort of resources, trainings, professional development opportunities, all of that. What do we have? Thank you. I could make a motion on that. Chairperson Delgado speaking. I want the board to be aware of that the ad hoc committee's work, I believe, is finished. They have wrapped up. So if there's anything from that ad hoc committee, well, we'd have to make a new committee. We'd have to ask them to reconvene even. So just to let you know. Okay, next, Commissioner Crosby.
Hello, this is Sherry here. It seems like some of the interpreters are afraid that they're going to be forced to go deal with all of this. And I think if we've been discussing a provisional certificate? Do we have something like that? Is it a certificate? It's like temporary, maybe like a plan to give them more time? We can change that so that they have time to meet those standards. I believe that that's something that, so we've already agreed on, like we've agreed on the standards, the 4.0 and that. So I think we should keep that the way it is.
Chairperson Delgado speaking, recognizing Secretary Argrave.
Hi, this is Ashley. I just want to say, like Miss Jordan said, like as Leslie said, I have many, many hats. So I have a lot of things that I want to say, but not all the time that I need. But I do want to agree with Jana. I think that we need to consider what the next action step should be. We need to be more solution driven. And so when I think about, when I hear a lot of people agreeing with elevating the standards to a 4.0 EIPA, and then I hear some disagreement about the degree requirement. So do we have an opportunity here for us to revise part of the draft, or do we have a chance to get with reconvene the ad hoc committee to investigate this further? There's something that I heard today, someone, one of the interpreters that commented, the public comment that said they don't feel like they were included in the discussion. And I didn't realize that. I thought there were the people that were invited to the discussion. So I'm wondering why they were not included in this discussion. And we have an opportunity to have another discussion with all of the educational interpreters. I know people who work on the ad hoc committee. They were interpreters, commissioners, and they really worked hard trying to think about the students as a priority. And I do think that's important. But I want to make sure that all people have the opportunity to be heard in this committee. Because I know that a lot of interpreters are not going to be willing, even if they have a temporary license, they're not going to be willing to go back to college. They don't have the funds. They don't have the means. They don't have the time. They have a family. They don't have time to go to school, to college again. We need to consider all of that because we're going to lose some really good interpreters. So that's all.
Chairperson Delgado speaking. Commissioner Crosby would like to respond to Ashley's comment.
Hello, Sherry Crosby. I was a member of the ad hoc committee. I watched the meetings. It was open to the public. You are welcome to join. I noticed that no one did show up for those Zoom meetings, correct, Leslie? So the contents, the suggestions, but no one showed up. I think the professional interpreters, I value them. It's really important to keep, interpreter standards. Thank you.
Chairperson Delgado speaking. This has been very critical discussion so far. But for now, I would like to ask for the board to consider making a motion for some action to maybe edit or revise. Or to accept it as is. Okay, calling on Dr. Wimberly.
Dr. Wimberly here. I did make a proposal for the ad hoc committee to add a plan of support on the standards, if they don't already have one set in place. Dr. Argrave, what does that look like?
Chairperson Delgado recognizing Dr. Argrave. Dr. Argrave speaking. I was just asking Megan, what's the plan of the support? Okay, like you mentioned, what does that look like? What exactly does that entail? Okay, Chairperson Delgado recognizing Dr. Wimberly.
Okay, those who have not achieved the goals by 2026, what would they do? What's the plan for those interpreters? Like Leslie had mentioned, we don't want to push out interpreters. We want to recruit those interpreters. We want to keep them. But if they don't meet the standards, what's the next plan?
Chairperson Delgado again, recognizing Director Broussard. Oh, no, she has relinquished comment. Okay. Did Commissioner Ramos, did you have a comment? Oh, no. Okay. Any other thoughts or comments? Recognizing Dr. Martin.
So I think we have two things here. We have standards and process, right? So the standards, we have a pretty good idea of what we would like to see as the standards. I think there's some question about college degree, things like that, and timing. But I think that the process is something that we need to address. And so I think that we should include, if we want action off of this discussion today, my suggestion would be the action would be to go back to the committee and say we need to develop a process that ensures that we fully support the interpreters throughout this process, and have a mechanism in place that if they meet this criteria but don't meet this criteria, that there is a process to bring themselves up to the standard. Again, like the emergency certification that I talked about before, and those things. I don't know if we can't necessarily promulgate a rule around incentives and things like that, because we don't have the funding currently to provide those incentives. I know that Meredith talked about creating some funding mechanism there, but I'm hesitant to do that. I'm going to go back to really the school districts. It's their responsibility to help these folks because they need them in their classroom. And I'm going to be in the same boat. I need them in my classrooms. So I'm going to need to make sure that I create the mechanisms internally to do that. So I think it's process versus standards. We know we want high standards, but what are some processes we can develop to help that?
Recognizing Director Broussard. So thank you, Dr. Martin. I want to let everyone know that the idea, the plan to establish the Interpreter Advisory Council, like a formal council from permanent council, to advise the process of what it would look like, to include the criteria, and they will make it public, what the decisions making will look like, if someone who applies and they've not met the requirements, the standards, this will be formalized from here out. So imagine, I think this fall, it will start. To Dr. Wimberly's point, to get a new group, my suggestion would be to hold off on that because we already have a group that will select those people. You will select those people to be a part of that committee. And they will hold the burden to create a process to mediate the standards. So that is on hold, but the standards is a rule that we are drafting right now. So my understanding is that the process, we don't need to repeat or redo the rules. It doesn't have to be put into the rules. It can be a policy, their own policy, its own policy, part of the LCD policy, but not in the rules. The standards do have to be in the rules, but not the process. That doesn't need to be there. So it doesn't have to be there, correction. So our standards, the draft, the current draft, where we're waiting on the current standards, the actual occupational license committee. We're waiting on them so that if we want to revisit the language, the standards, we would have to bring back, and we're working on that right now. They are currently working on that right now.
Okay, sorry. I know this is very important, so I just want to, and the interpreters, we all need a break. So like, I'm gonna try to make this as clear as possible. I don't want there to be any misunderstanding. So the current draft of the rules has the standard in there, right? That is where we are today. That standard has to go before the Occupational Licensing Commission for review and approval. If the board feels that those standards are incorrect, we need to pull them back and keep working on them. If you're fine with how they're written, we need to know that too, so that we can continue that process, because it's already like way in the state promulgating, rule process. However, I did want to make sure that you guys knew that the plan of that interpreter advisory committee is being established, and that group is then going to be charged with defining some of that criteria, the policy, those types of things of how we transition and work with the people. So that group could keep, once it's created, can take these things, and say, okay, now we hear you, and this is how we're going to handle that. That's an option. Or, like I said, the board could say, no, we want to define that now. We want it in rule, so we're going to pull that back. It's kind of up to you, but I just wanted to make sure that we were clear that the ad hoc group that was created is done. By the motion that was created, they have fulfilled their obligation. So you would have to either create a new one, reconvene the old one if they would be willing to do so, or, like I said, you could potentially wait and defer this to that advisory committee, which I know is not giving you an answer today. So there's a concern there because that wouldn't happen till the fall. So there's a lot of factors that I think they're involved here that I just want to make sure the board understands and that you feel as informed as you can to make the best decision possible. And we will take a break in just a moment.
This is Chairperson Dr. Delgado speaking. Next, we'll go to Commissioner Ramos for her comments. Yeah, we're gonna go to
Oh.
Commissioner Ramos first and then yours.
I make a proposal to keep it how it's written and to defer to the future committee to iron out some details. Oh, they already had some.
This is Chairperson Dr. Delgado. I'm trying to figure out who is speaking next. So I'm gonna check something with the secretary. Apparently, we seem to have two motions on the floor now. We have the first one from Dr. Wimberly, and now we just received the second motion from Commissioner Ramos. So yes. Mhm. Just a moment. We're checking on the status of Dr. Wimberly's motion first, and then I believe we have a second for a motion, for her motion. I'm sorry, correction, I believe, no, I'm asking whether we have a second for Dr. Wimberly's motion. This is Dr. Wimberly speaking. Just to clarify, I did make a motion for, propose for the ad hoc committee to plan to make certain plans for the ad hoc committee, but Director Broussard said that another group is going to be working on the policy and the standards coming up this fall, if I'm correct. So she made the clarification. It's going to happen, yes? Okay. So that would be the motion that is on my motion on the floor currently. Yes, I do want to leave my motion on the floor. I didn't know if it was in the works but it's not yet. But it will be in the works this fall. So if it's going to happen, then I'm not going to withdraw my motion. Okay, the interpreter is going to correct. So if this is going to take place in the fall, I will actually withdraw my motion. Because the plan is already in the works. The ad hoc committee will address this in the fall. So I'm willing to withdraw my motion and expect a further update later. The chairperson, Dr. Delgado speaking. So Dr. Wimberly has withdrawn her motion. We do have another motion on the floor from Commissioner Ramos. Would you mind repeating that motion for the secretary and for the pleasure board, please? Commissioner Ramos.
I make the motion to accept the standards as they are written because we have already approved that as a board in our last meeting, and to defer the questions and the discussion that we're talking about with more specifics to an ad hoc committee in the fall. Do I need to say more words? The Interpreter Advisory Committee in the fall.
This is Chairperson Dr. Delgado speaking. I believe Commissioner Crosby had seconded the motion, and yes, she has, I confirmed. And now I believe that Commissioner Martin had raised his hand for a comment.
Yes, I guess with the committee that's going to be in place that will promulgate the procedures and things like that, do they have the ability to either make substitutions or come to the board for substitutions? The only reason I say that is I'm in the middle of recruiting for several positions right now. And with certain positions, if the civil service requires a bachelor's degree, they substitute so many years of experience for that. And it's 6 years. That's what it is. It's 6 years of experience. So I would be willing to look at the standards. And as an educator, if someone has 6 years of experience or something like that, as an educational interpreter, could they substitute that for the educational requirement? And if the minimal education requirement is an associate's degree, then that 6 years could be 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. So if the committee can meet on that, and make it and really evaluate that, either if they can change it But it sounds to me like they would have to come to us because if we adopted the standards, we would have to build that in, or at this point, punt the standards back to us one more time. And we can look at making a substitution, an experience substitution in there for that particular piece, because it seems like that's one of the big hangups. I think we want folks to test at a proficient level where they're getting the most content to the kids as possible, but it seems like that's a sticking point. So that would be something I would just put out there as Marissa's made her motion, just as a comment for that.
Chairperson Delgado, I'd like to recognize Director Broussard.
Hi. Okay, so within the standards that are written right now, the transitional piece, which has the dates in it, and then also the alternative pathway, is in the notes section of the rule. Okay. The standard is in the standard section of the rule. So I would propose you consider removing that note altogether, leaving the standards as they're written, and then the advisory council come and create policy around all of those other things. If you feel strongly about leaving the standard as it's written, okay? Because then it's more about the transition. It's more about how much time have we given? Because if you put that date in now, and then they decide to change that, as a whole nother legal process to go through to edit those rules, right? So I would just say if there's pieces of it that the board would maybe feel that they do want to keep researching and they do want to look at a little bit further. And so I guess to answer your question, yes, the group has to bring what they have to you to vote on. You have the authority to approve it. The advisory council is just going to make you a recommendation. All right. But again, if you feel strongly or collectively about the standard, meaning a 4.0, an associate's degree, CEU requirements, 5-year renewal period, those kind of the details basically. But you don't feel very strongly about what that transition period looks like for existing interpreters and what should allowance be for them, or should there be experiential, credit hours provided like civil service? If that's the pieces you're still concerned about, that would be my suggestion, that we remove it out of rule because it's only a note as it is. Remove the transition out of rule. You guys keep working. And then again, it becomes a formal policy. It's just not in rule any longer. I mean, is that a solution?
One quick question.
Oh,
I know you
recognizing-
said, I'm
Yes.
sorry, this is Brad.
Yes, go ahead.
I know you said, Jana, that the board or the commission has the authority to promulgate the regulation. Is that true?
I'm going to get very technical. So to be extremely legally technical, the Department of Health has the authority to promulgate these rules. However, the Secretary of the Department of Health is looking to the commission to make those determinations. So they are going to support and approve what the commission puts forward. So it does still fall back to the board as the experts here to make these determinations.
Chairperson Delgado speaking. We still have Commissioner Ramos motion on the floor, and she would like to add a comment. So let's go ahead, take it away.
I would like to revise my proposal or my motion to remove the current transition note from the document and proceed with the regulations in the document that we've already approved, and then refer to the advisory council for future determinations of the transition questions. Do I have a second one?
Dr. Martin, you seconded?
Chairperson Delgado speaking. So Commissioner Dr. Martin has seconded the motion. Any opposed? Okay, I'm being informed that we're probably going to take a roll call vote for this. Right, a formal roll call vote. I'll have our Secretary, our Grave, help me out with that.
What did you say?
Senator Klein Peters said we're acting like the House because the Senate doesn't vote if there was no objection. But I think this is an important discussion, so we'll go on record for it. Now we're going to sit on opposite sides here now, aren't we?
Okay, Dr. Delgado, do you vote? No, I don't think I vote. You just decide there's a, okay. So
Ashley,
first,
Wimberly's asking you to restate the motion, if you can. Okay. Sorry. It's like 3 parts to it.
do you accept the standards as written? And for the question with more specifics for the Interpreters Advisory Ad Hoc Committee this fall.
We're removing the note.
Hang on, Ashley, you wanna just say it again?
Can you say it to me?
3 different ones.
I know.
No, I have to say.
Yeah,
Okay. My motion is to accept the standards as written, to remove the note. What note is it
the
titled?
transition plan note.
The transition plan note from the document, and refer future questions about transition to the advisory committee in the fall.
For further questions about.
I'm gonna get it for you. Let's vote. People need that. Do the roll call. Roll call? Oh, sorry. We all need a break.
Jamal, Commissioner Ennis. Commissioner Wellens.
See, I'll say emphatically, yes. I think we spent too much time on this. Please, let the advisory committee do the work.
Kami Gaspar. Commissioner Gaspar, yes. Does the proxy vote? Commissioner Knowles, yes. Dr. Megan Wimberly, yes. Senator Klein Peter? No. Sherry Crosby? Yes. Meredith Jordan?
No, with still the concerns on the timeline and helping our current interpreters feel comfortable with what is next for them, and just that piece not being fleshed out. yes to raising standard. No for the finalization of the whole package, right? But I have the utmost confidence in the folks that are going to reconvene to continue this work.
Marissa Ramos, yes. Sejana Varner. Dr. David Martin, yes. Sherry Powell, yes. For myself, Dr. Argrave, no. We have 9 yes. Let me confirm. 9 yes, 3 no.
This- Okay, trying to figure out whether this passes or not. Director Broussard said without, but whether you want to vote is up to you. I want to check with somebody who can confirm with me at the back. Can Dr. Delgado vote? Yes, yes, Dr. Delgado, you can vote. It's up to you whether you want to vote or not.
One point of clarification, and this is a question that I probably should have raised in the beginning, but if we accept the removal of the transition from the language, are we still accepting the 2026 timeline? Yes or no? We're not. Okay. Okay, well, then that's going to change my vote to that. So.
Okay, this is Commissioner Dr. Argrave speaking. We're going to change Commissioner Whelan's vote to a no. So we have 8 yeses and 4 nos at this time. Director Broussard says, so what happened next?
And just as a point of clarification, because I'm sorry, I think that the timeline is crucially important to say that we do not exclude interpreters and allow people. If you say, oh, well, 2026, people are going to go, oh, I don't want to deal with that unless you create a pathway for them to get there. And I think that doing it this way and accepting the motion as it is does not create that pathway because you're limiting the time so much. Yeah.
Recognizing Director Broussard.
I know we're trying to wrap this up. It's not working, but it's important. So I guess I'm a little confused. So you did ask if that date would be removed, which it would, because that's where the date is in that note. So somewhere prior to that thing being published, that rule being published, there would need to be some sort of decision about when we are going to implement it. Otherwise, it gets implemented immediately when it gets published. So we'd have to be very careful about that. So I guess an alternative also would be leave the date in there. But then again, the transition of if you don't meet it by 2026, what happens? That then continues to work. But I do hear Meredith, I mean, she's making a good point too. We don't want to leave interpreters sitting for months and months and months trying to figure out what's going to happen next. And we definitely need to make some decisions as quickly as possible. What month are we in? I mean, that interpreter advisory, we probably could get it up and moving as quickly as possible to try to move, not wait until the fall, which was the original intention, try to get that moving as quickly as possible. It's just, I mean, you're talking about a lot of different timelines and, demands on people and, and all of that. So I don't know that I necessarily have a solution here, but I guess I just would want you to know that, yes, if we remove the date, I mean, the motion failed as it was. Okay, so let's just be clear there. But what is happening next? Because I just need to know, if the board's like, nope, we're doing nothing different, we'll keep going. I need to know that. Or if it's like, no, we want that motion failed, but there's a different one, please just make sure we're real clear what it is that needs to happen next. Because obviously it'll be my job to go do that thing. So I guess the time is now, or I would even maybe, because there's no motion on the floor, do you want to take a quick break and come back and, okay.
Just a
All
moment.
right, you're
I'm
welcome.
really sorry, but
This is Chairperson Delgado, just a moment. Just to clarify, Chairperson Delgado speaking. So 11:30, we're going to take a 15-minute break and be back here in 15 minutes.
Okay, so if the motion doesn't fix the problem, can we, I'm just confused about who says we can substitute this for that. When I asked Jana, she said that the committee should substitute that. That's why I supported the motion. If they can't, and if we're in danger of enacting these immediately,
little deaf culture happening over here. This is the new gesture that we used to get children's attention at the School for the Deaf. Okay, Chairperson Dr. Delgado, it is 11:54 a.m. I'm going to call the meeting back to order. Discussing old business, point 8. I would like to recognize Commissioner Dr. Martin because I noticed that he raised his hand. Dr. Martin.
Thank you, Chairperson Delgado. I would like to make a motion regarding the things that we discussed in the first half of the meeting. I would like to move that we send the requirements or the expectations for interpreters back to the committee, back to the ad hoc committee, and have them send us recommendations specifically dealing with substitution of the educational requirements and a time frame to achieve the 4.0 requirement for the proficiency level.
Dr. Argrave has seconded the motion. Okay, any discussion? Commissioner Crosby is requesting to repeat the motion that is currently on the floor. Secretary Argrave, would you mind repeating the motion? Okay, let's ask Commissioner Dr. Martin to repeat your motion, please.
Restate the motion? Okay.
Yes.
I move that we send the standards back to the ad hoc committee and with specific guidance to address a substitution for the educational requirement, which could be years of experience, and creating a timeline specific to achieving a 4.0 on the proficiency test.
Back to Dr. Delgado. This is Chairperson Dr. Delgado speaking. Again, just for clarification, the motion has been restated. Our Secretary, Dr. Argrave, has seconded, so now we open it to discussion. We're going to have our Director give a comment, Director Broussard, and then Commissioner Wellens has a comment as well.
Okay.
Wait, oh,
Oh,
My bad.
Director Broussard first, and then you'll be next.
so just one point of clarification that's going to be necessary would be that, like I stated earlier, the ad hoc committee is actually complete. And so in the event that those particular committee members either can't or don't desire to participate in that discussion, is there an alternative to consider how to handle this? Just as the motion was written, that ad hoc committee was created to identify the standards, and they have done that. So anything further, just realistically, like, are these people available to, to reconvene? And so if they aren't, is there an alternative suggestion that you might want to consider?
Representative Delgado, let's go to Commissioner Wellens.
Yeah, thank you. This is Brad. Jana, thank you. That actually speaks exactly to my point. Is the clarification, is it the ad hoc committee or is it the advisory committee that you want doing that? Because in my interpretation, the ad hoc committee has already made the decision and no longer, So let's be clear if it's the ad hoc committee or the advisory. Thank you.
Chairperson Delgado, I'm gonna call on Commissioner Dr. Martin.
So Jana, the advisory committee is something that is in place or will be in place.
Director Broussard?
So that is correct. It was decided upon to create this group. The members have not yet been selected. We were going to put, some of those details in this rule draft, which I had mentioned earlier that they had to be taken out just because it just wasn't, the board had also looked at putting that group in legislation at some point and, anyway, so I can't put it in rule just yet. But the creation and the membership kind of qualifications have been identified. It's just a matter of like the people need to be selected and then they would need to get to work.
Okay. So my biggest concern is that from everything that I've heard from our constituencies is that for an interpreter that has a lot of years of experience, may already have a family going, may already have these things in place, it's going to be very difficult for them to go back for the education requirement. I don't think that there is any debate on we want our folks to achieve a certain level of proficiency with the proficiency testing. But I think that education requirement, it seems to be one of the biggest sticking points. So I guess if we don't have a committee that this can go back to and then come to us with a recommendation, then I would be willing to look at rescinding my notice and just go out and put out there what I would like to see happen. And that would be to substitute the education requirement with 6 years of experience, or maybe we could talk about that in discussion, but from a pragmatic standpoint of having to fill these positions and what I've seen for other positions, that a certain number of years of experience can substitute for educational requirements. But the piece that I don't really have the I think background knowledge to say is how long it would take to get to a 4, right? I will just tell everybody right now, I don't know how long that takes. I know that I took a beginning ASL class, and because I did not practice very well, I will be taking the beginning ASL class again next semester. So, and I had a wonderful teacher. He's here in the crowd right now. But I didn't do a good job practicing, right? So, I don't know if we don't have a committee we can send this back to really get some really good recommendations on this, then I'm willing to either rescind my motion or amend it to say I would like the educational requirement to be weighed with so many years of experience.
Chairperson Dr. Delgado speaking. I have one question also, and I would like to know if possible, if we have that we can have that interpreter advisory council to be preponed, meaning that instead of waiting for the fall, we can have it earlier. So that's my question for you all to consider. But now I'm going to call on proxy, Ms. Leslie Knowles.
Hello? Is that good? Okay. Leslie Knowles speaking. I'm wearing Delgado hat now. For the life experience in lieu of education, there are systems built in the university and community college systems already in place for that. You can do CLEP exams, you can do life experiences, which will in turn give you college credit. So those systems are already in place at the universities and colleges. It's just a matter of sitting down with an advisor. Here's my documentation of my life experiences. What kind of college credit can we give to you? So that's already built into the system. And then the other hat, ad hoc hat. ad hoc committee member hat. I thought we had this discussion in how many years of experience, going back to Dr. Martin's comment, how many years experience equals credit. RID has, I was trying to think of who it was. RID has something set in place. We were looking at that and I thought we had put that into the standards. Thank you.
Hi. So that is correct. There in the standard, there is that alternative pathway. If you do not meet that 60-hour credit requirement, that you can use, but here's the detail, only 45 hours of the 60 can be experiential. And that is using the Registry of Interpreters for the Deaf, their formula, which can't remember exactly what the equivalent it is, but it's something similar, right? If, however many hours equals 1 year of work, or 1 year of work equals how many hours. And I can't remember the number, but the national certifying body has a formula like that. What's different though is, I don't know, one of the public comments mentioned that today, is that Louisiana, the ad hoc, the recommendation there is of those 60, only 45 can be experiential and the other 15 have to be formal credits. So that is a detail, I think. Oh, and she said it's the same in colleges as well. So, so of those 60, 15 do still have to be credits. I also, just to say to Dr. Martin, or for you all to consider when you're thinking about what he mentioned, just for a point of clarification, would that policy, who does that impact? Are you talking about the future people as well, or just current interpreters right now? So, because you kind of have two different groups. You have like the profession moving forward and people entering the profession. Do they too get to be able to use, some sort of, credit towards their, like, let's say they've never worked in education before and they want to enter in, well, the standard says 60 hours. Do they also get to use experiential credit, or is this only for the existing K through 12 historically under Department of Education group, or both? So that would just be something you have to consider.
So
Commissioner Martin, Dr. Martin.
okay, so when I look, just from my experience, when I look at the professional experience, I'm looking at like experience, right? So I would say that if we allow years of experience for the educational requirement, it would need to be years of experience in that particular field. So I'm saying that, and to be quite frank, it is really to talk about the existing folks. My biggest concern is the existing folks right now. And that would be that if they have been in a K-12 setting doing educational interpretation, then that would be the years of experience that we would consider, I think, for this. If they have been, in the community setting, that's not the same environment as a school setting. And so I would not necessarily consider that as educational interpretation. So I don't know if I need to clarify that in my motion, but ultimately what I want to make sure that we do here today is not move so quickly that we end up messing this up. Because we as a commission have the authority here to set the pace for this. And ultimately, I want to make sure that we do it right. And if it's already in place that they can get 45 hours of credit, then that's 15 hours. That's, what anywhere from most classes are around 3 credit hours, right? So that's, that's 5 classes that they would have to take. But, how many, what are those, we have to then define what are those classes in, right? We have to define, where can they take those classes? If there's only one university or one community college or two community colleges offering that program, it could be prohibitive for somebody in a rural area to make sure that that takes place. Are they offered online? How are we offering those classes, and is it accessible to everybody? And again, I'm going to go back to the cost of it, because one of our folks that commented talked about the cost involved with that. It's going to be, we're going to need to be we're going to have to have mechanisms for funding. So if Meredith can work her magic at the at LDOE with some IDEA funding, then that's a great start for that, and make that available to districts. But districts are also, ultimately districts are on the hook to provide these services by law. There's no way of getting around it. So if you're on the hook to provide those services, you can't just tell a parent, oh, I don't have the money to provide those services. You have to figure it out as a school superintendent. And so, we've got to make it feasible, because these are not high wage positions where people are getting rich by interpreting. We've got to make it, we've got to make it a career that there is a easy entry point as far as resources goes, not necessarily for effort, right? And making sure that we get the skills that are needed for those folks, but we can't make it cost prohibitive for folks to enter the profession. So ultimately, what I want to do with my motion is to make sure that we have a mechanism in place to provide credit for that experience. To answer the question about, is it for folks that are existing and folks that are new? Again, if they've been in an educational setting for ever how many years that we set as that for those experiential credits, then that's who I'm talking about. Ultimately, if you want to, if you're brand new and you want to do this and it's your calling, then you probably need to go get that 60-hour degree and pass that test, right? But the folks that are, we can't afford to lose good interpreters, but we do have to raise the standards. So that's what I'm trying to accomplish with this. So I am open to suggestions, because I am new to this as well.
Calling on our secretary, Dr. Argrave.
I think it's important to mention that we're not trashing all of the certification requirements. He is saying for the educational requirement that it would possibly be something that you could substitute an experiential years of experience for these interpreters, instead of like treating them like a para who can sign. So just to be clear, he doesn't mean that we're throwing out all the other requirements, just a replacement for that one requirement, but keep all the other requirements that have been discussed. We have a motion on the floor. Do we need to vote?
It's Dr. Delgado speaking. We do have a motion that's still on the floor. And we need, do I see a hand? Okay, somebody would like to clarify if the motion has been changed, adjusted? Shall we reread the motion that we have at this time? Defer to Dr. Argrave.
Currently, the motion on the floor from Dr. Martin to send the standards back to the ad hoc committee with the specific guidance to address a substitution for the educational requirement. For example, years of experience. And to create a timeline specific to achieving a 4.0 proficiency on the exam. That's what we currently have. Okay, I want to mention that we've been discussing the ad hoc committee. It's not currently active, so we need to request them reconvene. But they could tell us no. So that's something to think about. Just to, maybe we need to have another plan if they tell us no. Or Dr. Martin can change the wording of his motion if you want to.
Okay. All right, I'm trying to think about how I can change the wording of. the
Just a moment,
motion.
Dr. Martin, we're going to send the camera to you. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so in thinking about changing the wording on my motion, I can say that when the advisory committee is convened, I'm just throwing out options. I'm looking for suggestions here, okay? So, it could be that when the advisory committee is convened, they can look at this and then send us a suggestion, send a recommendation back to us to confer. Or I say that we, then if it's not an advisory committee, I say that we as a board, as a commission, look at this and then come back to the next meeting with, and where we actually, look at this and come with suggestions on how we can address the education component. So I think that was probably because we don't know who's on this advisory committee yet. We have some criteria set. So I would like to amend my motion to say that instead of sending it to the ad hoc committee, that we send it back to ourselves as a commission to look at the two things that we've discussed here today, the educational component and a possible substitution for that, and a timeline for existing and existing interpreters to meet the 4.0 guideline, 4.0 requirement on the test.
Dr. Hargrave, does that mean that us at the board needs to come together and discuss this? Is it between now and the next meeting, we need to come together and discuss this? Yeah, I'm seeing a nod, I'm seeing a yes.
We can defer this for 4 more months, maybe if possible, or we don't want to keep deferring this. Just personally, this is Director Broussard speaking. If we could reconvene, it would be better before the next meeting, because we really need to keep this moving. We've already deferred this a lot. So, would you be willing to have a separate meeting before the July meeting?
Yeah, we just,
I think we could do a hybrid meeting.
yeah, we just have to, and what we have to do, I mean, if you're thinking about open
Just-
meetings rules
sorry,
and
Dr.
things like that, if we don't need a rolling quorum and you know, this going on. If we're going to meet as a group, then we need to meet as a group, right? So I would say that if we want to pull together another meeting before, then to have a work group meeting maybe on this where we can come and really hash out some things. But if there's going to be any ideas of any motions that come out of that meeting, we have to follow open meeting rules. So, I mean, I think that if there could be a work group put together. The motion could include putting a work group together, and that work group meets and comes back with recommendations off this board. It could be the whole board meets and we talk specifically about recommendations we can make, but then if it's a whole group, then we're essentially making recommendations to the whole group. We could vote on it then. Right. So, you're saying we need to?
Mhm.
No, I was just agreeing with you. So a work group would be more casual in nature. You don't have to follow all the open meeting laws, but some of the board, now you can't have quorum, at that meeting, but you can have some of the board members meet and discuss, make recommendation to the full board to vote on a later date. Or if the whole board wanted to meet, we have an open meeting, and the plan would be that you discuss and vote at that meeting of what the decision is. So it just kind of depends on how you would want to approach it.
All right,
But
I'm
so,
going
yeah,
to amend.
I was agreeing with you.
Uh,
You were right. Yeah.
Okay, so sorry to do this, guys, but I'm going to amend this motion one more time. I am not a legislator. So I would like to move that the board assembles a work group to review the educational requirement standard, and consider substitutions of experience for those particular requirements, and examine the time requirement around achieving a 4.0 on the examination, and make recommendations to the board, to the entire commission at the next regular meeting.
Chairperson Delgado speaking. Commissioner Ramos has offered to second the motion. Any further discussions or questions before we proceed with a vote? Dr. Argrave was asking, is the work group is us, right? Dr. Delgado is speaking to clarify, to make sure that everyone understand and we're on the same page. Yes, the work group is us.
How many board members do we have? How many commission members do we have?
18.
Okay,
18. So we need less than 9 to participate on this so that we do not have a quorum. So we'll need 8 or less to participate, and I do not mind volunteering Dr. Delgado to hold this up. No, I do not mind pulling this together.
okay. Chairperson Dr. Delgado speaking. So we have a motion on the floor. We have a second by Commissioner Ramos. Any opposed?
Okay.
Seeing none, this motion carries. Now passing it on to Director Broussard.
Hey. Can I have a quick show of hands of this board, of anyone who I want to be part of that? Jasmine, can you write these names down real fast? Keep your hands up, but we can also move on, because it's going to happen soon. Okay, so just heads up. Well, we can wait till after session. Oh, that lasts all the way. Yeah. I'll put your name down.
We just can't have more than 8.
You, or is it your, oh, okay, I don't know.
I don't. Right, I think it has to be the seat for that person. Yeah. Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah. Somebody from LRID representing the president needs to be involved. We have a This is the chairperson, Dr. Delgado speaking, or waiting for the camera anyways. Okay. So I'm excited that we have some motion. We're moving forward anyway. Now we're going to move on to our next agenda item. The impact of SB 98 decision regarding the Act 128 on the LCD program and board structure. We're going to have an update on this progress. Senator Klein-Peter, I believe, should be. I'm going to first pass it on to Commissioner Wellens first.
Great. Thank you. I will try to be extremely brief or as brief as possible. But okay. A little bit of background. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Senate Bill 98 or 2022 Act 128. We know they made the administrative changes, and then we've had difficulty with interpretation, the legal division of LDH. Stop right there. The solution then is that we have to change the structure in the statute to provide for the way that LCD, where it's going to exist, whether it be in DOA, whether it be in another agency, period. Okay, so the suggestion then, we took that suggestion, the original suggestion was to have it under the Department of Administration. The governing office said, no, we don't want that. Fine, come back to us. And we say, okay, what solutions can we then have either in this year or we're going to wait another year? We decided that we wanted to try to do something this year. Problem is, as Senator Klein-Peter knows, we're past the bill deadline. And that's a statutory bill, so we can't do anything about that. So the proposal then now is that we adopt a study resolution, which can still be passed, to study this issue during this year in between now and the next session, involving the governor's office, involving the legislature, involving LDH, and involving us. Yeah. So the issues that I see that are out there, and I think I speak for the ad hoc working group that worked on that. And I'm kind of reading off of the things that we discussed. So it is one that we need to involve all those people. Two is where should LCD exist under, and how much authority or autonomy are we going to have? Okay, so right now we have some autonomy, but not enough. The bill tried to give it more autonomy, but then it created other problems. There is a structure within the LDH that is you mind if I put it? Yeah. These are what they call the LGEs, or the Human Services Authorities and the Human Service Districts across the state under LDH right now. So those organizations are semi-autonomous. I think that LDH, and this is something we need to talk to them about, need to talk to the leadership about, is whether we can draft similar structures. There's a yes or no answer to that, and that's something we need to fix. And when you do that, it gets into the definition of what is oversight. Right. Okay. I think that that's pretty much it. Jana and Senator Klein-Peter, please weigh in, and also Mr. Ellis from the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs, please weigh in. So I'm going to stop right there, take questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I will offer that Senate resolution, for the study resolution up. I did speak with the Speaker of the House today. We will have a member from the House on the next meeting, appointed. I think, Representative McKnight was the previous one and, no longer there. But, I do know that there was a lot of moving parts. I did present what y'all wanted, what the board wanted to the administration. New administration, a lot of things were happening there. I do have a good relationship with the governor's office and with LDH, with the secretary and the deputy secretary. So I'll bring all these things up. I'll be the liaison, your voice, to the administration, and we'll see what we need to do as far as to best put LCD in the right spot.
Did you want me to ask any other question?
Director Broussard?
So one additional follow-up detail about that is it looks like they're trying to put a meeting together next week. I don't know if that's going to happen. That's LDH leadership, Senator Klein Peter, and some of the members from the subcommittee to start getting this conversation going. So basically what they would need to do is identify, what do we need to know? What are the things that we don't fully know? We have a lot of information and it's been discussed here, shared here about the benefits of a structure like that on the community, on the constituents, right? What we don't know is some of the impacts, such as like financial impact or maybe any kind of legal impact that we'd need to know. So identifying what those kind of questions are that we still have would be first, and then it goes into the study resolution, which what that is, for those of you who don't know, is basically it urges the Department of Health to respond to the questions that we've provided and ask them to provide those answers in a formal report by a particular date. And so that is the next step, is to, and that actually was the Department of Health's recommendation, that, they're the ones who said, we think you should do a study resolution. So, anyway, so they seem to be, really open to having the conversation with all of you. But that would be the next step, is for that meeting to happen. And then we would start working through those details. So that's the next step.
Yeah, thank you. And Jana, that clarifies that. I meant to mention that is that we are in the process of setting up that meeting with LDH and discussing those issues. And then we'll work with Senator Klein Peter's office about the things we need to put in the study resolution to ask them to look at specific things. But that's it. I mean, we're at the action points of that. I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Who have y'all spoke to?
Over in the LDH, I'm really just working through Jana to work with, we're under the Bureau of Family Health and Amy Zapata. And she's the one, and Jana are the one trying to get the meeting. And I'll let Jana
Drew.
clarify that.
Yeah, so it is Drew, and I can't remember his last name, Deputy Secretary, correct? So we've been working with his chief of staff and then I think the legislative director for LDH. So they're just trying to figure out some availability and get it on the books, but it is Drew as far as I know. Okay, great, thanks.
That's all I have.
Person Dr. Delgado speaking. Do we have any questions or comments for either gentleman who just spoke? Great. Well, thank you all. We're going to move on to our new business. Yes, okay. Okay, next we'll discuss our ASL interpreter mentoring program 3-year plan. And I'm going to turn it over to Jasmine Lamar.
Chairperson Delgado speaking. One moment, we're resolving some issues with the camera and the presentation.
Good morning, everyone. I hope this is on. No, it's not on. Bring my phone. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jasmine Lamar, and I am the statewide interpreter policy program manager for the Louisiana Commission for the Deaf. I did put together a PowerPoint presentation. You all should have a printout in your packet. Due to time, I will briefly sum up and skip a few slides. Within my presentation, in the slides, you will see there is a program, mission, vision and goals, opportunities, and some implementation strategies, as well as cost projections. We all discussed the problem today. There is a problem slide here. And so the proposed solution is to develop a mentorship program, which will then retain interpreters, create a pathway, and provide access. I do want to skip down to the slide, Victoria, if you don't mind going to the mentoring pathway slide, slide number 9. That does, so with the mentoring pathways, this will create pathways for sign language interpreters in the state of Louisiana, and creating opportunities for them. Within each pathway, you'll notice that there will be providing job shadowing. We're hoping to provide job shadowing opportunities, an internship, free certification practicum, pathway coaching, and then professional development. And in each pathway, there will be various of different projects that will be targeted to a particular audience based on the community needs. And as you can see, I won't go through each purpose and benefit, but it is outlined as far as what the purpose of each pathway is. Essentially, we want to ensure that we catch those who are in high school and provide some type of support to those who are in high school, and then leading them up to when they do graduate from high school, what opportunities are there for a post-secondary, higher education opportunities. And then when they do graduate from an interpreter training program, how do we bridge that gap from them from graduating from a interpreter training program to them becoming certified? And then as well as continue on to providing professional development opportunities for them to continue to develop their skills. So you're more than welcome to read that slide a little bit later on. There are some implementation strategies on the next slide that is outlined, detailed as far as how we will be implementing the program. First, identify the target audience, establish partnerships, which we did discuss today, develop a robust curriculum, develop a communication plan, recruit mentors and coaches, as well as recruit mentees. And then there will be a program evaluation for each pathway and for each project that we do launch. The next slide, on slide number 12, this is a breakdown of the cost projections for 3 years. The first year will be a pilot program where we will launch a K through 12th grade coaching, a K through 12th grade educational and interpreter coaching project, where that will target educational interpreters who are working in a K through 12th grade setting. And so, Victoria, next slide, please. And the cost projection is broken down into operating operating services, salaries, travel, there's professional services, PD, professional development training, for the mentors as well as, staff and LCD staff, and the professional development line item is the, for the mentees. Materials, there's equipment and licensing. Go React is a cloud-based platform where you're able to provide real-time feedback. And for the exams, I do want to make a note that the projections, the cost for the exams, is not going to be for all three of them. Only one exam will be taken for each kind of student. So each mentee, they will not take all three, the RID, BEI, or the EIPA. It will be one of their choices to decide what exam they would like to take. And that is something that we are hoping that LCD will reimburse the mentee and the student as some type of incentive for them to become certified. Again, this is a 3-year plan for the program. And there is a note on the side where it says 1 year maximum of 10 mentees, and each year it will increase by 10 mentees. And then for the mentors, there will be 2 subcontractor mentors, and that would increase by 2 every year. That does conclude my presentation. Victoria, you can,
Shadow speaking, recognizing Director Broussard.
Somebody's gonna have to man the camera though. You know. Jasmine also wears a lot of hats. Since I'm speaking, the interpreter is on the screen, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So I do thank you, Jasmine, for that. We did have a lot more information, but obviously for the sake of time, I think it was important, for us to move on and make sure we are including as much as we can in this meeting today. But please take your time reading through that mentor program. This is one strategy we have of addressing the concerns of our interpreters, right? And so it is a very, very important piece of it. We have listened, we have heard, we have, asked many questions and done a lot of research on figuring out the best pathway forward, because the reality is our interpreters need support. That is a 100% fact, in my opinion. But this is one of our strategies to help support that, to acknowledge that need, and ensure that these interpreters are not left just on their own to try to figure out how they can increase their skill over the next 2 years. But there is a free pathway. I know I'm not supposed to say free, at no cost to you. There is going to be supports in place that people can apply for to get one-on-one mentoring, coaching, resources, curriculum, practice, training, you name it. All right. And then also, as Jasmine stated, each one of those mentees that's coming in this first cohort that we're starting, we will reimburse them for one of their certification tests of their choosing if they complete the program. So what we are asking you as a board to consider would be basically to commit to funding this program for the next 3 years. Now, we are looking into alternate funding sources such as LDOE. We have been working with Meredith to see if there's some funding that the DOE can help put into this program, specifically into the mentor program for K through 12 interpreters. Okay, so not talking about other interpreters just yet, but it'll grow to that. And that'll give us time to also continue to research other funding. There may be grants, there may be opportunities through, small business associations or some sort of kind of early professional development groups that, you know, maybe invest in professions like this, that we will continue to look into that. But I would ask that the board would consider, no matter what, going ahead and funding this program for the next 3 years. The next agenda item really was going to be our budget for next year, and I don't know if we are going to have enough time to do it, but what I am recommending is that this would not come out of our annual revenue. It would come out of that money that we have kind of on the side that hasn't gotten spent yet, because we are already maxed out on our budget annually. The money that we receive via revenue for in the year, we already are, we max that out every year. But we do have that money that rolls over every year and has since the fund existed, that has a little over $5 million in it. So if we could use that money, it's not going to touch any of our annual, program services. We don't have to make any cuts anywhere. It would just come out of that extra funds. So that would be our recommendation, and would love if you guys would support that.
Chairperson Delgado speaking. We are having some technical issues, but we will move forward while that's worked out, because we are under a time crunch right now. Oh, perfect. I'm on screen. I would like to recognize Dr. Martin.
I will keep my comments very brief. Thank you. I wholly support a mentoring program for our interpreters. And I think that I did my doctoral research on new teacher mentoring, so I understand the power behind mentoring, and that I would like some additional information if you could just send it out, what the requirements for the mentor are going to be, and then obviously your target audience for, is it someone in their first 5 years, that kind of thing. If you could just send that out, I would love to see it.
Chairperson Delgado speaking, recognizing Director Broussard.
I will absolutely send that out. And just for a matter of record, this particular cohort that we're starting with the pilot is going to be for current working K-12 interpreters who do not yet meet the standard, whatever that may mean. All right, so that'll be our first year cohort. We're really going to focus on that group. But I can absolutely share the qualifications for the mentors that, we're working on that right now. But that is the goal for the first group. And under the mentoring umbrella of this mentor program that we're building, as Jasmine commented, they're individual projects. So the K-12 one is one project. We also released information recently about the Promoting Equity in Healthcare interpreting cohort. That's for current interpreters who want to get experience working in healthcare. That's actually open now. So applications, I do think, close soon. So I'm going to plug that real quick, but just be on the lookout for additional projects that roll out. But the very next one is for those K-12 interpreters who need that help getting to that 4.0.
Chairperson Delgado speaking. The floor recognizes Commissioner Jordan.
Thank you, Dr. Delgado. Thanks, Jana, for bringing this. The department is really excited about this, and excited to partner and potentially use some of our, so we would use our, again, that state level portion of our IDEA funds to help support this program. I did discuss this also at our state special education advisory panel meeting when we were getting input on what are our priorities? What do we want to spend our funding on coming up? And I really take their feedback really seriously, and all of our stakeholders, like all of you sitting here with us today. So I think, Jana, like for me, it's when, and I know we're discussing, you know, an appropriate portion and how much, because that's how much I really do believe in this. Dr. Martin hit the nail on the head when he said, right, like we can change standard, we can raise expectations. Those things are also important, but that retention piece and building the capacity and building the community of these educational interpreters, which in some of our rural settings, they're alone. It's just them or one or two of them. And so creating that community, I think, is going to be really helpful in retaining high quality interpreters in our state and in these positions. Don't try to take them into the medical field. We need those too, but no, we're happy to support this, Jan. I really believe in this.
Chairperson Delgado speaking. I'm just trying to see if we have any motions to support this in a financial aspect. Dr. Martin, I saw the hand shoot up. Go ahead.
So moved.
Dr. Delgado speaking. Commissioner Ramos has seconded that motion.
Oh, okay, so, yeah.
Any opposed? Recognizing proxy Leslie Knowles.
Leslie Knowles speaking. Are we accepting these costs, this budget? Is that what we're voting on? Okay, thank you.
Chairperson Delgado speaking again. Okay, anyone opposed?
We're running out of time.
Now recognizing Director Broussard.
So Ms. Knowles said that she does oppose that particular budget because she feels there's some things missing. May I ask you, is it that you don't see a breakdown, or is it the dollar amount that you're opposing?
Leslie Knowles speaking. Oh, if it was dollar, I wish it was more, but it's the breakdown, and there's some things in the line items that need, like, there's no diagnostics. I'm not sure what the program looks like. I have like 4 pages of questions about that.
Sure.
It's not the amount. Like I said, if it was me, it would be more, but you know. There's the line items that I'm really unsure about.
We could absolutely share that with you, keep discussing it, listen to feedback, you know, but if you guys can vote on the dollar amount today for the concept of the mentoring program, then we can definitely keep working on those details.
Commissioner Delgado speaking. The motion carries. Okay, moving down to other new business. LCD fiscal year 2025 budget proposal. Oh, we have changed. We're doing the next meeting date. We're going to request to change the next meeting date to July 12th. 2024. Currently, the date is set for July 19th. The proposal is to change the date to July 12th. Reason being that Director Broussard will be out of town. Oh, Director Broussard.
And you are absolutely welcome to host this meeting without me if you'd like to keep it on the 19th, but I just wanted to make sure you knew that I wouldn't be here. So up to you.
Commissioner Crosby.
Hello, I motion to accept the date July 12th for the meeting.
Chairperson Delgado speaking, and we have a second from Commissioner Ramos. And several hands. Are the hands for comments or questions? Okay, Commissioner Dr. Wimberly. Dr. Wimberly speaking. I do have a motion to add about the date change. We have so much important information to cover in such a short time, really. So I propose to perhaps extend that next meeting for maybe 9 to 3 with a lunch break. I think that would be nice.
I guess I might end up having to pay for
You can talk to Department of Health about what we're allowed to spend those funds on and not. So it might be you paying for it.
Commissioner Delgado speaking, or Chairperson Delgado speaking. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to change the meeting from July 19th to July 12th. Commissioner Crosby has made the motion. Commissioner Ramos has seconded. Any opposition to that motion? Seeing none, motion carries. Moving on to the second motion on the floor, Dr. Wimberly has made a motion that that meeting be extended by an hour, or did you say until 3 o'clock with a lunch break? Do we have any seconds or a second for that motion? Oh, see, well, oh, do you have a second? Oh, we have a comment. Director Broussard.
So just for consideration, I do have a little bit of concern about accessibility for a meeting that long, especially with our tactile interpreters working with our deafblind clients. Yeah, I can see their faces. And so there's a little concern there for them, to stay all day. However, if we're having that work group that's going to be working very extensively through that one particular agenda item, perhaps there won't be a lot of discussion about it by that point. So just a thought.
Chairperson Delgado speaking. I request a motion, or do we have a motion already?
No second though.
We have the motion, but no second. So that means it's been dropped. Okay. Now I request a motion to, or we can move forward to new business. It's the budget proposal. Oh, sorry. To clarify the error, we're going to defer one of our line items, the LCD fiscal year 25 budget proposal. Oh, and also to defer the vote for the vice chair.
Gotta make a motion.
May I have a motion for that, please? The floor recognizes Commissioner Ramos. Are you making the motion?
Yes, I make a motion to defer those items to the next meeting.
Okay, Ramos has made the motion to defer those two items and Commissioner Wellens seconded. Any opposition? Seeing no opposition, motion carries. Okay, we can adjourn this meeting at 1 p.m. We can declare, yes, this meeting is adjourned at 1 p.m. Thank you.